Good morning, my dear children of class 9. Today, we shall be dealing with Merchant of Venice. This is the continuation of MOV which we had started in the previous videos, and we are still on with Merchant of Venice. In the previous video, what we had seen in Act 2, Scene 1 was the first suitor. Who was the first suitor that we discussed? Yes, it was the Prince of Morocco, who happened to be the first suitor trying out his hand at the lottery system. Prior to that, the remaining suitors that we had talked about in Act 1, Scene 2, all the suitors, they left the place because they did not like the process of the lottery system to win Portia's hand. So they had left, saying that only if Portia decides to change the very procedure of winning her hand, only then would those suitors return and try out their hand in winning Portia's. So they all left and never returned. So apart from all the suitors, this suitor that we discussed in the previous video, Prince of Morocco, happened to be the first suitor. So that is what we discussed, and we also saw in that scene the kind of character and the personality that Prince of Morocco carried. He was a warrior by nature. He was strong, well built. He was dark in complexion. And yet, besides all these, he was a man full of pride. He was a man full of, high self-esteem, and he was pretty egocentric. That is exactly what we see. And towards the end of that scene, he was taken to the temple by Portia, where he had to undergo 3 vows. He had to take 3 vows, after only which he would be allowed to choose the casket. He would be allowed to go ahead with the process of lottery system. That is exactly where we halted. And now that scene took place in Belmont. And from Belmont, from that pompous speech that we hear and that we heard about, from Prince of Morocco in Act 2, Scene 1, we are once again taken back to Venice. And this scene, Act 1, Scene 2, takes place at Venice. And out here what we see is for the first time we are introduced to a comical character who happens to be the clown of this entire play, by the name Lancelot, who is also the servant of Shylock, who is presented to us for the first time out here in this play in the very opening of Act 2, Scene 2. And here in this scene, what we see is Lancelot, he is in a dilemma. He is having a debate between his two conscience, his conscience that has been divided between an honest conscience and the conscience that is filled with prejudice. And Lancelot out here is, as I told you, he's in a moral dilemma. And here, this entire scene, in fact, plays a very important role. It provides comic relief after the pompous speech that has been delivered by, yes, Morocco, as well as the ominous effect that we are left with after Antonio decides to sign the bond. That develops a kind of an ominous environment, where the readers are filled with fear and is filled with apprehension and is filled with anxiousness as in what will happen next. So in order to break us readers from this tension, this comic scene that is in the form of Act 2, Scene 2 has been developed and brought in front of us. So now, without much delay, let us move ahead with Act 2, Scene 2. Venice, a street before Shylock's house. Enter Lancelot, scratching his head. So as I told you, this man, he's debating, he's found undergoing a moral dilemma where he's debating between his two consciences as in whether to continue his service under Shylock or not. So now let's move ahead. Lancelot, certainly my conscience will serve me to run from the Jew my master. The fiend is at mine elbow and tempts me, saying to me, Gobbo, Lancelot Gobbo, good Lancelot, or good Gobbo, or good Lancelot Gobbo, use your legs, take the start, run away. My conscience says, no, take heed, that is, stop. Honest Lancelot, take heed, honest Gobbo, or as the four said, honest Lancelot Gobbo, do not run. Scorn running with thy heeds. So in these lines that I just read out, it clearly talks about, it clearly shows the kind of debate, the kind of struggle, inner struggle that Lancelot is going through at this current situation, at this current juncture of his life, where his conscience, as I already told you, has been divided into two. One is the fiend, as he puts it, the fiend, that is the conscience, his conscience that is prejudiced against the Jew, whom he hates and does not wish to continue his service under the Jew, that is Shylock. So remember, Lancelot is the servant of Jew that we were talking. So he does not want to continue his service under Shylock. And the other conscience, that is his honest conscience, is teaching him obedience, is teaching him loyalty, where the conscience, that good conscience, is asking him to continue his service, be honest and be loyal towards his master whom he had been serving for many years, to continue his service under him and not to leave. So this way, Lancelot is found struggling, fighting between these two consciences, a conscience that is prejudiced, which he refers as the fiend, the devil, and the other conscience, that is the honest conscience, that is advising him to continue to remain loyal and serve Shylock. Yes. Then see, well, most courageous fiend, that is the courageous fiend here is the other impulse, the impulse that is prejudiced, bids me pack. It's asking me, the fiend is asking me to pack my things and run away. Via, says the fiend, that means go, run away. Via, says the fiend, away, run away, says the fiend. For the heavens rouse up a brave, for heaven's sake, rouse up a brave mind. And the fiend says, he tells, Lancelot says, and not, the fiend also asks him, for heaven's sake, muster some courage, build up some courage, gather some courage and run away from the devil, that is Shylock, run away from the Jew. And run. Well, my conscience hanging about the neck of my heart. That means hanging about the neck of my heart is restraining the conscience, that is the good conscience, is restraining, is hanging by his neck, means holding him back from running away from the Jew. Why? Because that conscience wants him to be honest and wants Lancelot to continue being a loyal servant to Shylock. About the neck of my heart says very wisely to me, my honest friend Lancelot, being an honest man's son, or rather an honest woman's son, for indeed my father did something smack, something grow too, and he had a kind of taste. Well, my conscience says, Lancelot, budge not. Budge not means do not move. That is, do not run. My conscience is advising me not to run, just the opposite of what the fiend is advising me. Then says the fiend, budge not, says my conscience. Budge, says the fiend, and budge not, says the conscience. Then after that, after this long struggle, what he says is, conscience, says I. Finally, Lancelot, he is trying to show that he's trying to make a stand between his two struggle between the two conscience that he has. Conscience, says I, you counsel well. You are advising, conscience. You are giving me a good advice. He's speaking to himself, to his conscience. I should stay with the Jew, my master, who, God bless the mark, is a kind of devil. So, God bless the mark is an expression used as an apology for having said something which was supposed to bring unlucky. And like, for example, mentioning during the olden times, the very mention of devil was something which was forbidden, for they believed that if they would mention devil, the word devil, then it would bring them bad luck. That was the belief. So before so that is exactly what he's trying to say and express out here when he says, I would say. So what here he is saying is that if conscience, you are giving me a good advice. You are advising me to stay with the Jew, who is no different from the devil himself, who is the kind of devil himself out here, he says. So out here, when he refers to the Jew as the kind of devil, out here what we see is the kind of racial prejudice that was prevalent out there during that time, during the Elizabethan time, you know, which and this very reference of the devil, where the Jew has been compared to the devil, it actually shows the kind of prevalent racial discrimination that existed, that the Christians had for the Jews at that time, where the Jews were synonymous to being monsters of cruelty. That was how they were projected. That was how the Jews were stereotyped at that point of time. So that is exactly what is being shown out here through Lancelot's dialogue, where he compares the Jew to the devil. And to run away from the Jew, I should be ruled by the fiend, and to run away from the so he's saying that if I have to listen to your conscience, I will be continuing my service. I will continue to serve the Jew, who is the devil himself. And he says that, and Lancelot says, if I have to listen to you, fiend, then I will be taking orders of the devil, the fiend out here. Then see, so he's so confused. I should be ruled by the fiend, who's saving your reverence. Saving your reverence is also again the same expression as God bless the mark. So saving your reverence is the devil himself, and the fiend is also the devil, as I already told you. So if I have to listen to the fiend too, it will be like taking orders from the devil. All right, from the devil himself. So certainly the Jew is the very devil incarnal. Incarnal is the very incarnate. He is the incarnation. Jew is, that is Shylock is no different from the devil. He is the devil incarnation. And in my conscience is but a kind of hard conscience. So my conscience is advising me something good, but the difference is that he is advising me something that is very difficult, which is a very difficult choice to make. And that is to continue to serve the Jew, who is the devil himself, to offer to counsel me to stay with the Jew. The fiend gives me the more friendly counsel, whereas on the other hand, in the contrary, the fiend is giving me a better counsel, a more friendly counsel. So finally, what we see out here is his inclination seems to be tilted more towards the fiend, which makes us very certain that he definitely will run away, where he will not continue his service to under the Jew. I will run, fiend. My heels are at your commandment. I will run. So here is his decision, where where towards the end he becomes very vocal to himself, says it aloud that I will run away from the Jew. I will listen to you, my fiend, for you are giving me a friendly counsel by advising me to run away from the Jew, who is the devil himself. So I will listen to you. I will listen to your command. My legs are at your service, and I will run. That is what we say. And so this is the decision that he makes. Then he runs, and as he runs, what happens? Falls into the arms of his father, old Gobbo, who comes along the street with a basket. So he comes across, enters Gobbo. Gobbo is the old father of Lancelot, and Gobbo, he is physically impaired, not by birth but because of old age. He is almost near to being blind. He is sand blind. So now that is his problem. Gobbo gasps. Then, Master, young man, see, Gobbo, since I told you that Gobbo is somebody who is sand blind, he cannot recognize who the person in front of him is. all he sees is a very blur image of a man. He cannot see very clearly. So that's why he fails to recognize his own son, Lancelot, and he says, Master, young man, I pray you, I request you, which is the way to Master Jews? So here we get to know that old Gobbo is on his way with a basket in his hand. He is on his way to Shylock's house, and he seems to be seeking for direction, and he happens to encounter his son and asks the direction, whom he does not recognize to be his son, for old Gobbo is sand blind. He is almost blind. Lancelot, aside means he's talking to himself. Oh heavens, this is my true begotten father. Oh heavens, this is my father, who being more than sand blind, half blind, high gravel blind, he is almost blind. He is more than sand blind, he is almost blind. Knows me not, he seems to have failed to recognize me. He does not know me. I will try confusions with him. So he says, tells to him aside, I will try confusions with him, means I'll try to deal him in a manner as if where I'll be pretending that I'm not his son, but I am somebody else. I'll confuse him. Then Gobbo, Master, young gentleman, I pray you, I request you, which is the way to Master Jews? Then Lancelot says, turn up on your right hand at the next turning, but at the next turning of all, on your left, Mary, that is Virgin Mary, to very next turning, turn off no hand, but turn down indirectly to the Jew's house. So out here what he does is, Lancelot, he plays a prank by providing a very complicated and a very, very senseless direction to confuse his father, old Gobbo. So this again adds to the comic relief, So he turns and twists his father to various different directions, thereby, giving senseless direction and confusing his father. And Gobbo, on the other hand, what he says is, by God's Sontes here refers to saints. By God's Sontes, it will be a hard way to hit. That means it will be a very difficult way to find by hearing the kind of direction that you have given me. It will be almost near to impossible to find my destination. Can you tell me whether one Lancelot that dwell with him or no? So the funny thing is that he is inquiring about his son, and he is asking to his own son about Lancelot himself, while on the other hand, old Gobbo is totally unaware about the person to whom he is asking, where in reality, the person to whom he is asking all these questions, the direction to direction of the house that led to the house of Shylock, he was asking to his own son. Then Gobbo, Lancelot, talk you of young Master Lancelot? So see, out here in very high sounding words, Lancelot is referring to himself as if he was somebody else, and Lancelot was known as master in that area. He's trying to project himself in front of his father. He's trying to project his own image as something else which is not, which again shows Shakespeare is trying to show the kind of society, the kind of people in during the Elizabethan society during his time existed. So where people they try to present themselves as something which they are not. And this is exactly what Lancelot is also portraying out here. Through Lancelot, where Lancelot is portraying himself as master, which is he not, because in reality he is a servant. So just like Lancelot, people during the Elizabethan time in that society, such kind of people like Lancelot existed, where they tried to project themselves as what they were not. This is exactly what Shakespeare out here is trying to show us. So then Lancelot says, he refers to himself as master. Talk you of young Master Lancelot? Then he talks to himself aside. Mark me now. Now will I raise the waters. Now will I raise the waters means now I'll make my father cry. See, to the extent where Lancelot is planning to go. So he plans to torment his father with a very practical joke. And what does he say? We shall see very next. Talk to you of young Master Lancelot. Are you talking of young Master Lancelot? He's still referring to himself as young Master Lancelot. Gobbo, poor Gobbo, he replies, no master, sir. That is, he is no master, but a poor man's son. His father, though I say, is an honest, exceeding poor man, and God be thanked well to live. So, poor Gobbo, he says that, he honestly and very sincerely is a very simple man, where he says that, my son is no master, for he is a son of a very exceedingly poor man, and God thanked well to live. So, and a very simple man who is a very poor man, though a poor man, but yet who lives a good life. Then Lancelot, well, let his father be at a will. We talk of young Master Lancelot. So Lancelot, let his father be whatever he might be. Lancelot, look at him, what he's saying. And we talk of young Master Lancelot. So what we are talking about right now is, we should be talking about young Master Lancelot. Forget about what his father wants or what his father was or is. Then Gobbo, your worship's friend and Master Lancelot, sir. Yes, sir, we are talking of young Lancelot. Lancelot, but I pray you, old man, ergo means therefore. I beseech, I beg you talk of young Master Lancelot. But I pray, again he is referring to himself as master. But I pray, I request, I beg that you are talking about young Master Lancelot. He keeps referring to himself as young Master Lancelot, and poor old Gobbo, all these while he is not able to gather any idea that person to whom he is talking, and he was talking all this while, was his son. So see how his son takes advantage of his disadvantage. Disadvantage being his blindness, almost being blind. Gobbo, of Lancelot ain't, that is, if it please your mastership. Yes, we are talking of Lancelot. Lancelot then, ergo, therefore, Master Lancelot, talk not of Master Lancelot, father, for the young gentleman, according to fates and destinies and such odd sayings, the sisters' tree. The sisters' tree out here is the classic conception of fate and destiny, where fate and destiny, during the olden times, during the classic times, fate and destiny were believed to be three sisters. So that is what he's referring to. So the three sisters and such branches of learning is indeed deceased. Indeed, deceased means dead, or as you would say in plain terms, or to be straight, gone to heaven. Lancelot is dead. So this is the news that he gives to, false news that he gives to his father, old Gobbo, that Lancelot, that he himself is dead. So let's see the reaction of Gobbo. Mary, by Virgin Mary, God forbid, the boy was the very staff of my age, my very prop. So, poor old Gobbo falls into the prank of Lancelot, and he believes him. And he cries by saying, oh God, let that not happen, because that boy, that is my son, was my only support during my old age, my very prop, my sole support at old age. And Lancelot, when his father says he was my staff, he was my very prop, Lancelot, he takes it in the literal sense. Gobbo meant that he was my support during my old age, and Lancelot, he takes literally by saying, do I look like a cudgel? That is a staff, a stick. Do I look like a stick? Or a hovel post? That is a post supporting a hut. A staff or a prop? Do I look something like a stick, where he is telling me that I was the very staff of his? Do you know me, father? So now out here, when he for the first time, prior to this dialogue, when he for the first time refers to old Gobbo as father, here what we see is we see the intention of Lancelot, where he is intending to admit that he was Gobbo's son. He wanted to reveal the truth to his father. He was planning on intending to reveal and admit that he was his son. So that's why he has first mentioned and addressed Gobbo as his father. Do you know me, father? Do you not know me, father? Do you really not recognize me, father? Gobbo, alack, the day I know you not, young gentleman. But I pray you tell me, is my boy, God rest his soul, alive or dead? So, Gobbo, he is completely grief-struck. He's completely sad and saddened, and he wails and he says, alas the day, the young gentleman, the day. He's referring to a young gentleman. He's referring to the person in front, who is actually Lancelot, his own son. I do not know you, but please, although I do not know you, but please do tell me whether my boy, my son, is really alive or not. Then Lancelot, do you not know me, father? Do you seriously, father? Do you really not know me? Do you you still haven't recognized me? Lancelot asks. Alack, sir, I am stand blind. I know you not. So he still is not able to recognize, in spite of Lancelot referring to Gobbo as his father. So, sir, I do not know you because I am blind. How will I know you? Then Lancelot, nay, indeed, if you had your eyes, you might fail of knowing me. It is a wise father that knows his own child. Kneels. So he kneels. Then, well, old man, I will tell you the news of your son. Give me your blessing. Truth will come to light. Murder cannot be hid long. A man's son may, but in the end, truth will out. That means I can no longer hide the truth from you. Finally, the truth has to be revealed, because truth cannot be concealed. Someday or the other, it will come out. Sometime or the other, it will be concealed. It will be it cannot be concealed. It will be revealed. Then Gobbo, pray you, sir, stand up. I'm sure you are not Lancelot, my boy. I'm sure you are not Lancelot. Please pray, boy. I see he still is not able to recognize Lancelot, who is his son. And Lancelot says, pray you, let's have no more fooling about. Let's forget about this jest, forget about this joke, but give me your blessing. So he's still kneeling. I'm Lancelot, your boy that was, your son that is, your child that shall be. I am your son. Believe me, I am your son. I had been your son. I am your son, and I shall forever remain your son. I am your son. So please give me your blessing. So he was still kneeling out there with his hat off, and he was kneeling, waiting for his father's blessing. Then Gobbo, I cannot think you are my son. I don't believe that you are my son. See, he's still not able to believe when Lancelot finally has revealed the truth to Gobbo. Then Lancelot, I know not what I shall think of that, but I am Lancelot, the Jew's man, the Jew's servant, and I am sure Marjorie, your wife, is my mother. So he makes mention of his mother's name, that is Marjorie, who was the wife of Gobbo. Then see, Gobbo, her name is Marjorie indeed. I will be sworn if thou be Lancelot, thou art mine own flesh and blood. And finally, after having taken the name of Marjorie, his mother, wife of old Gobbo, Gobbo finally believes Lancelot, and he says, yes, indeed, you are my flesh and blood. You are my son. He feels his face, and then he feels his face. Remember, he's still kneeling down. Lancelot is still kneeling down. Lord, worship my TB. What a beard hast thou got? Thou hast got more hair on thy chin than Dobbin, my Phil horse. Phil horse is his horse that draws the cart. So Dobbin was the pet name that was given out of love to his horse that drew their cart. Has on his tail. So he says, it seems that you have more hair on your chin than on your than Dobbin has hair on his tail. Then Lancelot, he says, it should seem that Dobbin's tail grows backward. Does it seem that? So he says that then it looks like Dobbin's tail grows backward instead of growing long. Why? Because Lancelot's hair was short. His beard was short. So he's just making a jest out here in a very humorous way. I'm sure he had more hair of his tail than I have on my face when I last saw him. So he's saying, Lancelot says that, has Dobbin's hair started, growing backwards? Because as far as as far as my knowledge was concerned, and as far as I had seen Dobbin when I last visited my house, I had seen that his tail had grown more hair than my hair. So then Gobbo, Lord, thou art, how art thou changed? So, God, you have really changed. How dost thou and thy master agree? I have brought him a present. How agree you now? Lord, you have really changed. How do you and your master get along together? Are you and your master getting along well together? See, I have brought a present for him. So he holds the basket. So the basket that he had, that we saw Gobbo carrying while he entered the scene, that basket carried some present that he meant to give it to Shylock. So he says, see, do you agree about this? How about this present? I have brought this for Shylock. Do you agree with it or not? Then Lancelot says, well, but for mine own part, as I have set up my rest to run away, so I will not rest till I have run some ground. My master is a very Jew. Again, the very Jew that he mentions out here is the description that plays into the negative stereotype of the Jews, of the Jewish people, as somebody who is greedy and stingy. When he says, Master, you may tell every finger I have with my ribs, Father, I am, you are come, give me your present one to Master Bassanio, who indeed gives rare new liveries. Liveries means costumes. If I serve not, I will run as far as God has any ground. Oh, rare fortune, here comes the man to whom, Father, for I am a Jew. Father, for I am a Jew if I serve the Jew any longer. So he says, then when Gobbo shows him the present that he meant to give it to Shylock, immediately Lancelot tells him, announces his intention to his father, where he announces that Lancelot was planning to run away from Shylock's house, that he did not want to serve, he no longer wanted to serve the Jew, that is Shylock, for he was the very Jew. The very Jew out here, as I told you, is a very negative stereotype where they represent somebody who is very stingy and greedy. For Lancelot says that the reason why I want to leave him is because he does not feed me well, and I have grown so thin that you can count the ribs with your hand. You can count my ribs. I have grown that thin. So this is exactly what he says and projects Shylock as. Then he also puts forward his another intention, and he plans on running away from the Jew, and he plans on joining the service under Bassanio, who is seeking for new servants, and who not only is seeking for new servants but is also providing his new servants new bright costumes for them. So he wants to run away, and as he talks, the minute he talks about Bassanio, under whom he wants to join as a servant, at that minute, at that nick of time, enters Bassanio. So Bassanio, he enters and he says, see, oh rare fortune, oh splendid, what of splendid fortune. Here comes the man, that is Bassanio, to whom, Father, for I am a Jew if I serve the Jew any longer. Here is the man whom I want to serve. Father, if I have to continue my service under the Jew, there will come a day that I will become like the Jew. So this is one reason why I plan to leave the service under the Jew. So so here we see this is a comic relief, as I already told you. that helps us, that intends and helps us to relieve the helps the readers to relieve the tension that has been created in the previous act, where Antonio plans to sign the bond. So yes, and out here this character Lancelot has proven a successful clown, where he has brought about a lot of relief, where he has brought about quite a lot of fun and laughter in our face, in the reader's mind, where he does create a very humorous situation where the conversation between him and his father, and the act that takes place and unfolds between them, where Lancelot is taking advantage of Gobbo's blind or near blindness, and how he gets fooled, and finally how he reveals his truth. And ultimately, all in all, once again, we are shown the kind of status and the position that the Jews had during that time, where the Jews were looked down upon by the Christians, where they were and they were stereotyped as somebody who was very stingy, somebody who was greedy, somebody no different from the devil, somebody who is the monster of cruelty. So that is exactly we see out here. So for today, class 9ers, the scene also being a pretty long scene, for this video we shall do till here, and we shall move ahead with the rest of this scene in the next video. Till then, stay tuned. Please do study well, and go through the text as you view this video. I advise you to keep your text and a pencil in your hand, so that whenever there is an explanation that I give and you feel that is important to be noted down, I request you to do so that it will help you for your future reference. Thank you very much, and take care, my dear children of class 9.